Iranian lie detector.
It's just our intros are just you coming up with some dumb shit and
Hey,
then me reacting.
what do Jeremy Irons and Gordon Lightfoot have in common?
Iranian lie detector sounds like a it sounds like a name for a scam, like the Toledo
Ooh,
panic button or the Shanghai swapadoo.
or the Irish goodbye.
I'm gonna write that down actually. Iranian lie detector, dude. That's actually brilliant. I have a big long list of good band names. I don't know if that's a good band name, but it's
I know the
certainly
band
like a
name.
cool name for a scam.
Folk rock group, The Road Narrows.
The Road Narrows. That's really good. Have you seen that? Have you seen that Will Smith movie with Margot Robbie where he just is like a scam artist, like a long
Called,
term, very in
called
depth
Road
scam
Narrows or
artist?
Iranian lie detector?
No, no, no. It's I forget the name.
Either way, it was better
One
than
of you in the somebody's screaming at the screen right now who's watching this.
I always say Jack Richards, but Will Smith isn't his usual wheelhouse. You know, he's more of an
I bet
American.
he still knows though. I
Oh,
bet
big
I
one.
usually have a good memory for this. I think it's like Switch or something. I don't know. It's good. You should watch it. It's a tough. It'll fuck you up. Not
Which is
quite
the
a
fuck
M
yeah.
Night
Oh,
Shyamalan twist. A little less ham fisted.
I've gotten the
Okay, what
Switch
did you
my
say?
fair share of times.
Iranian
Not the Nintendo.
sector. Did I start our timer? Fuck, I didn't.
You know, there's
Whatever.
a girl that I sub for that just writes down everything I say. She's like a scribe.
That's so weird.
So no, she doesn't. Never talks. Never talks. I still wonder.
That's buck wild. Um. Okay. No, Sam said that you have a fan club.
Yeah, we're let's not talk about it
Gross.
anymore. I'm probably gonna get fired for this actually.
I started the fan club.
My YouTube is
I've
just
been
my name. So if you just Google my name, it's like probably result number 7 or 8. Like it's not that hard to track.
I've been commuting up and down to Sasa and like working on this fan club.
I'm
I'm
taking
like I'm like in Death Note. I'm like L, whatever the guy's name is, in the
yeah,
shadows on the computer. The guy on the
yeah.
computer.
It's not
I'm like
okay,
the
man.
deep state.
I'm taking all of this out in post. You're not seeing this right now.
Yeah, you can fix it in post.
Cal,
Shout out JoJo. I don't know if you guys knew, but he does all the editing, and obviously he posts on his YouTube channel.
I do.
Like I feel like we've compartmentalized the responsibilities of the show well. I don't
Mhm.
know.
Oh,
You do
you're
a
the
lot
one
of
that
heavy
makes it happen
lifting.
every week.
I
I
try
think
and come up with like a structure and itinerary and some notes and some post. I keep the post interview rolling as best I can.
an idea of
Three
order,
balls.
Charlie. That's what you bring to us.
Yeah, yeah.
A gesture.
Very
Something.
very sexy. Very. My role is very sexy.
A
I have to
moment's
say that.
organization in our
The sex
fruitless
appeal.
chaos. Oh yeah.
Speaking
Well,
of
fruitless chaos.
organization in a moment of chaos.
Not there today.
Oh, dude, that's gonna be the bit. So we're gonna open in the intro. We're gonna open with you coming up with some weird mutation of
Of
our
Ironlight.
title, and then I'm going to. You're gonna rate my
Wow.
segues every time. I'm writing that down. I'm writing that down in an itinerary. Intro slash title mutation,
See, this is why we
and
need
then
to on this before we start recording the time.
segue, transition, and critique.
Episode 11 is gonna have it all, folks.
uh, Jojo, we shared a few tender moments. We shared a few more quite gut wrenching ones.
Tender
You care to
moments.
share?
I'd call them palliative hours. That was long session. Solo session was the last session of Pragasfar. That's what I'll talk about today. I ran 3. Session 17 of Pragasfar was 17A, 17B, and 17C. They were Charlie's one shot, Houston's one shot, and Max's one shot for Cal, Patch, and Baragon, respectively. The first 2 of whom had just died. So, our one shot, yours and mine, picks up with Cal, being reborn. And Cal is reborn, not as we know him, tattooed southern talking monk folk, but in fact as a 4-winged bird called a kestrel. It's a real type of bird, but these are kind of like 4-winged doves. It's a pretty name, kestrel. The truck noise.
Did you come up with Kestrel the god, or did you come up with Kestrel the bird first?
Kestrel. So the way I named things for Pragasvar was I took a bunch of cool sounding syllables. I borrowed from things that were thematically relevant to the place I was
Yeah,
designing, right? I'd take, okay, this is based on my old friend Sameth, and it's also based off of the fantasy world of Asgoria. So I'm gonna take those syllables and just mix and match them around, you know?
that's
Um,
clever.
yeah, and at the end of the day, after like 2 pages of deliberation over this place in the north where I wanted what is Trailwire Expanse now, I was like, you know what, Kestrel's a cool word. I just don't have to.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm gonna share in our post review how I come up with names because my
Beautiful.
my way is pretty weird too.
There you go. If roving DMs can derive lessons from what happens here, by all means do. But for those of you just along for the weird narrations of our D&D sessions, Cal's one shot began with you reborn as the four-winged Kestrel, flying through the Trowire Expanse. Cal's tattoo that he had gotten near the start of the campaign of like 4 teardrops shaped from a center in his arm have mutated, have grown into small wings on his arm when he lands and transforms back into human form, as he learns he can do. And Cal can now wild shape. The 4 sigils on his arm are charges that can be recharged daily and spent to transform him into a small kestrel bird, a pegasus for 2 charges, unicorn for 4,
And a unicorn.
which are
Holy
badass in
shit.
D&D. I mean,
Oh my god, take it from me. Shout out Mac, shout out Keith Cruz. Give your
yeah,
players a mount like that.
there's a brony in R&D somewhere because those
Oh
fuckers
yeah.
are packing. I mean, teleportation, like legendary actions, I think.
Yeah, fully.
So Cal's a house. Cal's a house now. For damage taking because it's wild shape too. So damage, it's like a bank of hit points. Anyways, mechanically, putting that aside for a moment because a lot happened story wise in this session. Cal flies back towards his home, the stock of reverie, the people from whom he hails, only to find that some changes have undergone there in the town. New people have arrived, some people have left, but the biggest change is all of the dreamers. Cal has always had a connection to the dream world of Nanon. That was his people's thing. That was how the lonely that he mutates into hunts him. He's found out that the dreamers that trained him by his mother teacher as he calls her, have all assembled into one central hut because they have picked up on or been alerted towards or grown a new sense for a threat to the world that is somehow connected through the astral sea, where they go when they dream. So all the dreamers are down in a bunch of beds. It's full, not Total Recall, Minority Report, the Minority Report, where you just have these thinkers and the tanks, like some crazy shit's going on. Cal dips into the dream world for a minute to see what's up, comes back out, finds Drizzt Do'Urden. What? This callback to this ranger the party met in the desert. Kind of a scummy, fast-talking dude. His voice is based off of the waiter we always had at Fleetwood Diner. So he's got
You're
kind of like,
kidding.
no, he's super light, man. I always liked the way he talked. I always wanted to try and do it, you know? It's got like Latin intonations, but it's not a
Yeah,
lick.
yeah, yeah. Very, very, very Bronx. Very New York
Exactly. It's got a
Bronx.
little Bronx spin to it. Um, But he runs into Drizzt Do'Urden, who has renamed himself Angel, a name he got from the Chain of Acheron, his paladin league, and he is there on assignment to alert the people of the Stock of Reverie about this extraterrestrial threat and to unify them. So Cal, well, he's there for something still. He's there to find the last duality. That's why Trailwire. That's why now. That's why he was reborn. It was with this divine purpose to find the last duality weapon, the only one the party's still missing. So Cal doesn't have a ton of time, says to Drizzt, now Angel, go find my father, bring him back to the village. I'll meet you back here. I've got to do something first. Angel goes out. Cal flies to the meteorite shard, and the adventure part of the session begins. Because it's there, that he encounters the meteorite shard split into 3 groups. Long past are the days of Pragasvar holding 0 reference to Mura, minimal reference to Targonra, our fantasy worlds of the past that we've played in and shared in together. I've kept references and allusions pretty low, but now that we are in the end game of Pragasvar and things are falling apart and the fantasy is associating in a lot of ways, the references are everywhere. They are avid. So the first meteorite shard is the remnants of Mura, the world that I ran ages ago, Project Archangel, which it's implied all of these worlds that have ended, all of our D&D games that have ended, are past exploits of Dr. Bleakwood in the Somnium Tenebris. It is these mind flayers, these like world devourers, have gone from fantasy game to fantasy game, and they've ended them, like in favor of real world relationships. It so seems. He's the perfect antagonist for a world in which we choose to play fantasy in that sense. But I digress. Charlie goes into the meteorite shard of Mura, faces a projected image of Dr. Claymore Patch, and goes to fight him, but turns it into this calming moment of negotiation. Which, of course, is a reference to Salik's one shot from a long time ago back in Mura when he had to face shadow versions of his friend. I wanted to do a big callback to that. So that goes really well. He learns Claymore Patch's true name. Bum, bum, bum. Hard to defeat him whenever. Goes to the next meteorite shard. It's the remnants of Targonra, the campaign we were in that fell apart most recently. Charlie fights Shadow Baragon, finds out his true name, goes on to the final meteorite shard, where he faces Shadow Cal. They have a really charming little conversation. There's a nice interaction when you, as Cal, flip Charlie, the true name. That defeats the Cal you were facing, right? Which is really, really funny because, spoiler alert, for anyone who ever wanted to read Ursula K. Le Guin's Wizard of Earthsea, skip the next minute of the podcast. The way Wizard of Earthsea, which invented the true name thing, like that's where the trope in fantasy comes from.
You're kidding.
The
I did
big
not know
reveal,
this.
No, the big reveal at the end of the book is this shadow creature that has been hunting the main character the entire time. The main character says his own name, and it is the true name of this thing was a reflection of him, and he could never figure it out. Destroys it on the spot. But that's Sparrowhawk for you.
Very
That's
Fight Club.
Charlie leaves very Fight Club. Wow.
Yeah.
You
I like it
leave
a lot.
other Cal, you take his place where he had been waiting for so long on top of the mountain, and the session ends with Cal confronted by a portal. The last of these challenges is a portal leading to the shield, which he can see plainly in front of him. It's there. And a portal showing Angel, who he sent earlier to track down his father, and his father mutated into the form of the Lonely that had haunted Cal for so long. So Driss Doran, Angel, is fighting the Lonely, and he is losing. And Cal, stepping through one portal, seemingly loses access to the other. So I was like, if Cal makes a decision on the spot, it happens. If he can't, this is where the session's going to end, because something else is going to catch up to you. There's going to be an encounter here. And you said Cal wouldn't decide on the spot. So that was the session. It was a lot of role play, obviously. I intended those encounters to be fights, to be kind of combat heavy, but you really impressed me. I mean, you talked me down. I gave you a bunch of cool new weapons too. You pick up a staff from your Seraph of Love on the way in with like a bunch of spells in it.
You didn't mention
That's true.
Morvega.
Morvega.
And Cal told Morvega that he had seen Kestrel in a vision.
Right.
She froze up.
She's like, that's how you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because Kestrel does not appear to people. The gods are not present in Pragasvar.
Right.
So what the hell was that? Was a big question earlier in the session. But yeah, Morvega shows up just to give you the divine protection in the form of this badass staff. Like, you get a sweet new weapon with a bunch of spells. You got these transform abilities that make you into wild shapes and stuff. I thought we were gonna have crazy combats, but Cal did the negotiator thing. It was sweet. It was sweet. It was a different kind.
In some ways, it was a return to Salik. In other ways,
a massive
bring him back
divergence
out.
from form. And that's what it is. That's what I love about D&D. I love to have tropes and have illusions, and then to, show me something I've seen before, but then add something. Like, mix it up. Make it the old and the new. Make it comfortable and yet strange. And this one shot absolutely was. So it was a blast to run. I can't wait till I can talk about the other two, because they were all in the same kind of world. Like, a lot of the same pieces got used. It's going to be sweet to watch them all come together.
That calm emotions. I knew at the beginning of the campaign, just with the way that, just like with that one guy who, when we were in Emery Spade's and Arlo fixes tomb.
Oh
And that
yeah,
guy showed up,
the kid that
and
robbed the
I forget
grave.
if he attacked us. The student, the
No,
groundskeeper.
Aragon just clenched his throat. There was no initiative.
Right, yeah, and he just like, or no, we hid, not the grave robber, the groundskeeper. The first time we came to,
Okay,
the first time we came
my
to
bad.
the University of
Eriswile. Yeah,
Aniswile.
ages ago. Wow, that was
So
sessions
we
7 or 8.
hid. Groundskeeper got up and left. We thought that he was there with more nefarious purposes. Cal got up out of the tomb, gets a line of sight on the guy, and I said, I like this so much. Like, probably this is my favorite role play for a spell. It's not anything special. Cal extends his hand, the bangles around his wrists glow, and it's just a rush of autumn wind and leaves that just blow past and blow the hair of whoever's standing there, and there's this sort of washing almost.
A simple thing.
Yeah,
Very
fun,
nice.
good, lots of fun.
Delightful, I think, is the best word for it. It is
Yeah,
just simply delightful.
yeah,
You
right
used it
up
well.
Cal's alley. Right up
Negotiator came out.
Cal's alley. Yeah.
That's the beat for me. In broad strokes, that was the session. Just so much fun to play, right? Like the minutia cannot be captured in these kind of big scale
Oh
recaps.
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
can't trace back the tiniest moments.
Hey, that session. I mean, I said it about Korik. That session was ours,
Yeah.
but it won't ever be again. Now it's yours and mine.
Wow.
Wow.
Easy there, Tiger. Pull a
Yeah.
punch.
All right. Shall we send it over to a different fantasy world that I'm sure Bleakwood will ravage through sooner or later?
Similar yet different. No, that's why I love Bleakwood so. That's why he's my favorite antagonist I've ever run. Because now, whenever I visit other people's campaigns, it's like, hey, you want a dude to try and invade your world from another plane for a minute? Like,
Space. I thought it was as simple as space aliens, but no, it was
planar
the
travel. They want new worlds.
in some way, JoJo, Dr. Bleakwood is you.
Hmm.
But we'll save that for the post interview. Let me write
Moving
that
on,
down
moving on, moving
because I
on.
want to talk
Yeah,
about that.
get into it. You got sauce. You're coming right up on the threshold of the peak of your campaign, it sounds like.
Brains and Bots, Josadius, the three hostages that disappeared into the maze at different points over the last few sessions have materialized, completely exhausted and lashed to the summoning apparatuses, the arcane compasses that collect the sacrificial energy and manifest it into something powerful, right? Keith, our elven bard, and Gleason, our dwarven artificer, are faced with a choice. Kalesh is on his way up. He's Supermaning up. He lands on the platform of the summoning compass that Gleason has already started to dismantle.
Big superhero
And Keith Cruz, just one of the shrewdest spellcasters. He is one-on-one with Kalesh. Glayson's trying his best to focus in, trying to tear the chains off of, I think it was Fargrim Gulstaff, who is the father of Frieger Gulstaff, dwarves who've been lashed to the respective sort of this is Neome's last ditch to try and complicate their efforts to prevent her from returning to the world, right? And Glayson's grappling with these enchanted chains, the very same chains that banished Kartikeya, our wizard Warforged, to the Feywild, filling him with this fear. The rest of the party is fighting through this orcish army. Now they're facing off with these titans, the king's elect, the Fomorians, who are holding back the swell of bodies, trying to defend their king. And Keith, right as Kalesh, I'm trying to deliberate whether or not it would be a bonus action or not for Kalesh to spill his blood and make the sacrifice.
The whole campaign hinging on an action economy.
Oh God, I hated it.
That's how it is, though. That's how it goes.
Keith,
language.
I mean, that's true, right? Like, I'll know for next time. I really wanted it to feel. We'll get into this behind the screens. I really wanted it to feel genuinely like we were within the strictures of the rules, and it was just neck and neck, and it truly was, considering that Gleason had already destabilized the platform. Regardless, Keith lets off an eye bite, one of the strangest, most niche, most clever spells, and Kalesh fails to save. Now, what effect of the many that Eyebite can perpetrate did Keith choose?
Mm-hmm.
Kalesh sat down on the ground, laid on his back, and fell fast asleep. The Titan, the Iron-Fisted King with hundreds of hit points.
Has no immunity to that? Was he
16
raging?
levels in Barbarian, 6 levels in Warlock, 14 levels in Barbarian. There was nothing I could do. He fell asleep. Nothing Kalesh could do, certainly. It was so brilliant. And this is right before Neome, the BBEG, was about to manifest and wreak havoc. It was so smart. But now, the conditions to maintain the sleep are very, very, very precise. If he's shaken awake, if a strong breeze blows against this guy's face, he's up.
Coming up.
So
Okay.
Clayson and Keith had an important choice to make. That being said, Kalesh's concentration on his fly spell, the only thing preventing him from being flung into the astral storm, was down. So, Gleason finally manages, using the armor that has formed out of his steel defender, using the tools to sort of dismantle and throw off, for the most part, the magical effects of these chains, frees Fargrim, throws him over his shoulder. And Gleason and Keith, they pull off the craziest combo attack, right? Gleason uses a thorn whip to lash around Kalesh's ankle, waking him up and simultaneously flinging him off down at the Astral Storm. He fails that saving throw, right?
Mad Ivan.
But now he's awake. He can just cast Fly again. But Keith still had concentration on Eye Bite. And I said, well, listen, Keith, this guy's going to plummet 500 feet in a round, okay? And unless the range of Eye Bite is 500 feet, it's going to be tough. And he said, let me try it. Let me plummet on my unicorn Pegasus and try and maintain concentration on this guy. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let you do this. And it paid off. Kalesh plummeting through the air. It was so cinematic. Rain falling up. His eyes close, and he disappears into the storm below.
What a way to go.
Meanwhile, the party would be watching this if they weren't facing off Titans, quadruple their size, that have almost killed them in the past, right? And so the rest of the party's facing off. It's dubious, right? The Kings Elects, they're disciples of the Iron-Fisted King. They feel deeply betrayed in this moment. They're battling their own people. And Sly, our Water Genasi cleric, she makes a plaintive sort of case. She's like, listen, we're here to take down Kalesh. You know he's bad. He manipulated you. You were the ones who knew his secrets, right? He brought you in close. He gave you these abilities so that you would become complacent. She rolled high enough on her persuasion check. They were allowed in just in time to watch Keith get off this crazy spell for Kalesh to disappear down into the storm below. The crowd is rapt, and the fighting stops as soon as it starts. Hundreds of orcs just lean over one of the platforms to make sure that the deed was done. And there's an orc comes out and says, well, the king's dead, so I guess we should kind of figure out what we're gonna do next. We'll meet for coffee and donuts in 15. Everybody collect yourselves. You know, we've gotten some hard hits here. This was the community organizer of the Iron Tribe.
They're forming the parliament.
Right. And bewildered, the party watches as the fighting completely stops. The loyalty to the king ended just as soon as he was conquered.
That's
right?
Sweet tribe mentality. That is like the beliefs of a people. Like they
Right.
worship the living king,
They worship the living king.
and that's it.
What's left is Crust and Rex, his half brother, the crowned princes of the
Yeah,
Iron
seriously.
Tribe. Crust, our half orc barbarian. Now, Crust, he just watched his father die,
Yeah,
disappear into the depths below. And the
man.
party is left to sort of collect themselves. But Crust is forced to face down the crown that fell off of Kalesh's head and landed on the platform, poetically, beautifully, Shakespearean, just as he plummeted off. The only thing remaining of Kalesh was a belt of giant strength that I gave them because,
Oh, oh, you
because
goody.
it's no fun if you can't loot, and the crown of the king of the Iron Tribe. Cross has to stare it down. Simultaneously, Kartikeya, stepping out into this storm dimension, looking at these devices that Gleason hasn't betrayed, he built. He hears a strange beeping, a rhythmic clicking. It's nobody else seems to hear, but doesn't stop even after the fighting is over and the battlefield falls still. He's not particularly concerned. They go about doing their investigations. Gleason very systematically goes around after they cast their identify spells and destroys all of the device that Gleason built. The question remains: did Gleason build these devices for the same reason that the people that the brains and bots witness using them, for the same purpose, to resurrect Neome? Gleason doesn't even know. He's forgotten. The only way that he remembers that he assembled these machines is muscle memory. And just as soon, this arcane armor that formed out of his steel defender Rusty jettisons off his body Iron Man 3 style and reassembles into his little sort of Nepter Adventure Time steel defender with the claw arms.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool.
This was a behind the screen style. This was a wild close of a session. Kalesh could have counterspelled that eye bite, right? He could have counterspelled that eye bite, but true to form, I can't metagame. And so Kalesh knew that he was good on health. He was good on a lot of things. And so I was going to roll the dice to see if he was going to counterspell. He was fully up on hit points, right? And I did the equivalent of flipping a coin, and he decided not to. He decided that he felt healthy enough, he felt safe enough, he felt powerful enough. I guess even the dice mirrored the confidence and the cockiness of the Iron
Make
Fist.
the save. Yeah, no, totally.
And Kalesh figured he'd make the save. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a barbarian feature that would have let me re-roll it. But everything leaves your mind, and God, it was such a beautifully cinematic moment that the man with all of the muscles and all the words can't do shit when he's fast asleep.
Wow.
You know, a sleeping baby is a happy baby, and whatever happened to Kalesh, whether he's dead or whether the astral storm had other plans in mind for him,
And in that sleep of death, what dreams may come.
what dreams may come. You know, that's all that's left. I just had a lot of fun because now this next session we're gonna get into like the party sort of getting to know the Iron Tribe without fear of constantly being discovered and like killed and apprehended, like a Kaleshless context for meeting the culture from which their teammate, their party mate, Crust Crooked Fang came from, technically, right? His birth, his blood family. Also, I was pretty embarrassed because I hadn't come up with an identify like card, like any sort of specific thing to say for identify when they sort of ran their gauntlet down these devices. So
wow.
I gave them very, very bare bones descriptions.
Or on the spot,
But
yeah. at the end of the
I
set.
was able to tie in why they were so bare bones, right? Naomi, being the goddess of secrets, would lock that information down unless she had no more to gain from expending the energy. So the party will soon discover what those devices were for, their names and their uses. Um, but it was cool. They were satisfied. I think they're gonna attune those belts of giant strength, which are insane, by the way. They
Probably
just
would,
bump
yeah.
you up to like 20 strength for free
Dummy stat
at the
boost.
cost of an attunement slot.
Hey,
But it was cool. Like it's
I'm
what?
astonished sometimes how useless that is, though. Like strength, real dumb.
Well, yeah. I mean, we confronted that earlier in the campaign. I was like, you know what? Strength is so nerfed in this game. I actually gave my players a choice. They can actually use strength to calculate their AC instead of dex.
Wow,
Yeah,
generous.
it doesn't. Magic items don't help you, right? Because the creators of the game realized that strength was a really dumb stat too.
Mm-hmm.
So they made magical items that let you bump it up for free. They never did that with Dex because Dex is the best
Oh,
stat
no
in
way.
the
Can you
game.
imagine with like int? Oh, Christ.
Oh yeah, insane,
Be a
dude.
problem.
Well, there is one magical item that bumps up your int to like 19.
There probably is.
But
There's no
wild.
reason you couldn't for all.
Um, but yeah, that is the session behind the screens. Um, and there were a couple times over the course of the session. The last thing I'll say about this particular session is there were a couple times where I could have been way more of a hard ass, and I'm proud of myself that I was like, you know what? Let's let this be cinematic. Let's let this be triumphant and just insane. And at the cost, right, of stakes. Nobody died. Everybody was okay. It was a fairly bloodless. It was a fairly bloodless fight. The stakes were high. People's lives were at stake, but they rolled well. And I hope the party found that satisfying insofar as the stakes weren't necessarily life-threatening. That being said, when the rest of the party was fighting through that army, they lost a lot of hit points. So I think that there were some stakes, and I think I struck a good
balance. Fascinating.
But that was Josadius, man. Post-interview.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Stakes in combat. I've been thinking about that so much lately. Just because Pragasfar has I feel like the opportunity for some really big fights really soon. It's hard for me to anticipate exactly which agents will be involved with what objectives, but I'm getting these stat blocks ready. Like I'm setting up these fights, like the encounter spaces, and I'm thinking all about stakes. And I am in love with Claymore Patches and Cal's synergy in combat. Because you both have so many abilities that become really, really good when everybody's hurt, when everyone's low health, right? Like you guys start doing your most. So it encourages me as a DM to just obliterate your hit points. Right? Just go nuts on them.
Yeah, Mad Ivan was shout out Jim. Mad Ivan was a terrifying foe.
That was awful. It was awful.
Definitely the scariest D&D opponent I've ever played with in combat.
Well, it made you use delay. It made you use Death Ward. It made Patch use his D8 Warlock bullshit.
I transformed into Reeves, into the Lonely.
So sweet. You get to see all these characterizing things because you corner people, which is what I learned from you, Charlie, time and time again. Corner your players, twist the knife, and you'll like what you find.
Oh yeah. So I'm one of the things that I decided I was going to do this next arc is really try not to separate my party, right?
Mm-hmm.
The caveat with that is there's 5 of them. They're all level 14, I think. And so it's going to be really tough to throw stuff at them that's really going to make them scared. But I've done it before, and I'll probably do it again. There are even things I learned about from the second arc that are going to make the third arc all the more thrilling, because at the end of the day, Naomi is just a piece of the larger implications for this world. I don't remember, Jojo, if I sent you my world map yet. I think I sent it in our
You sent a proto form of it, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is. I feel like proportionally to your much smaller arc, your single arc story, I guess maybe two,
I call
maybe
it two.
arc sub arc, yeah. And my like 3 campaign long, like multi-year story, I think we're in similar places. Um, as far as being along it goes.
Wow,
Um,
that's cool. That's cool. I'm
yeah,
curious to end.
honestly, speaking of big fights though, like I'm really I'm really anticipating I'm really anticipating Cal having to face Baragon down and being like, listen, I'm not gonna fight you. But then Baragon ups the stakes.
Yeah.
And Cal is like, I'm not gonna fight you, and then Baragon ups the stakes. And there will be that. I'm so looking forward to that breaking point where Cal, because I have a lot planned for the level ups that you gave. If anybody knows about Astral Monk and that 3rd level feature, it's an amazing site, and I have a lot planned as far as role play for that I think is going to really startle Max in particular.
Excellent. Which is
As
probably a good
Baragon.
time for me to say, announcement relevant now. When you go back to using your bond abilities, there are all new bond abilities. They are the level
What, dude?
2.
Oh my god!
I've
Yo,
written them all out. They're sweet. They're so good. That's
yo.
if you guys, because it's so much harder to be on the same side right now than it ever has
It's if we ever bond again.
been. Yeah.
There's a potential that Cal tries to bond with Baragon, and Baragon uses the bond ability against him. Like, think
All
about that shit. Think about that shit,
right, we'll
man.
do PvP next session. What
The
1v1 in a month?
shield,
Really? Yeah.
really, the shield, man. Like, who, whoever gets the shield, I don't even know how much of a boon that's going to be. Like Cal is super powerful. Like he could probably stand. I mean, I imagine like he's kind of like a seraph, like in such a weird way. There probably aren't a ton of people in the world like him. He doesn't know how much time he has. He really feels fairly unstoppable. I mean, he doesn't feel cocky, but he honestly walked through 3 fights that were supposed to really fuck him up.
Not a damage, not a
Right?
single hit point loss. Yeah.
Baragon, Dr. Patch, himself. Um, I wanted to mention the last thing that we did in our 1v1, instead of Cal choosing to whether to save his father and Drizzt or to retrieve the final duality weapon, when he was sort of negotiating with Baragon, the room was just, we were standing in like a half foot of blood in that
Yeah.
room. And once Baragon had sort of disincorporated and disappeared, Cal dipped his arm into the blood up to the length that Baragon used to grip it in a camaraderie, right? But Cal doesn't know the significance of what he's doing. But rather than make the choice, he knelt down in the snow of the mountain. I forget what the mountain's name was.
Maracas.
He knelt down in the snow of Mount Maracas and just tried to rub that blood off of his arm just to feel clean, because he knew he was going to have blood on
The
his
Lady
hands.
Macbeth, man. They get it off. Get it off. Get it off.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
No, Moracas, things in Pragasfar take the last syllable of the thing that made origin of them to make their name. So Moracas, born of it was Kestrel. Trellwire.
Yo,
Moracas, Kestrel, Trellwire. Yeah.
that's wild.
It's your god's origin.
The mountain, dude. Hey, it's a landform. It's powerful, man. It's powerful. I wanted to kind of flesh out how, because I didn't realize all this about Dr. Bleakwood, right? Like, I didn't realize that he was the hidden assassin, the one who destabilized the foreign governments in Mura, in Targonra, destroyed them, right?
Which, of
Corrupted them
course,
from the
to be
inside.
totally clear, is retroactive DMing, right?
Right?
Obviously,
No.
other things into those campaigns, but that's what
Don't
I've made him to be.
don't reduce that, man. Like, that's such a brilliant idea. Targonra, I'm sorry, Mura in that final one shot with the remnants, the remnant heroes.
Right.
Watching Mura fold in on itself, I have such a fun time imagining Dr. Bleakwood pointing his finger up at this floating continent in space and just all these weapons just converging and incinerating the world that you built, right? And he just like frees a Dragon Ball Z, like flies. Cool guys don't look at explosion styles. Mura implodes
100% that.
onto the next conquest to take down Targonra and to claim Pragasvar next, right? I'm interested to see how Bleakwood's going to think of Tiamat. Like, is that going to be an impedance?
You guys haven't seen that at all, yeah.
I have a fun time imagining Dr. Bleakwood meeting up with Baragon and being like, listen, some of our goals align. Like, do you want to do this? And Baragon being like,
Dr.
I mean, I've got
no. Dr. Petch said no, but
true, but he's already got Parlous wrapped around his finger. You know, why not push the envelope all the way? Right now, Baragon, in a lot the same way that Cal might be more literally a seraph, Baragon is climbing the ladder to godhood.
He's a king. He is a king amongst men. He seems like one. He plays like one now.
Right, exactly.
His one shot made me more sure of that than anything before. Like watching him interact with Arkancelis, it's gonna be cool to see the after effects of that.
I'm really scared, dude. Cal's changed a little, but not that much.
No, it's sweet. It's sweet. Yeah, the last I'll say of Bleakwood and maybe of Pragasvar is just that in a fantasy world designed to ask why do we play D&D? Why do we have fantasy worlds? Bleakwood is a character who says we shouldn't. He says end this world. You know, he made an argument to Dr. Pat as to why one should, which is one of the most fun conversations I've ever had in character because I was so barely in character. You know, it was me talking to Houston almost explicitly. We were just using silly voices. But Houston disagreed, and he wrote a really great poem about his disagreement, or maybe not about it so much as casting some allusions to it. With his permission, I'll put it in the description. But
dude, I did not see this. Is it in Poems for the Pinner Boy?
Absolutely is, yeah.
I did not see that.
And he ends with the line, "Here's the only quality of the realness that I respect," referring to like the realness of a world. And he says, "How hard a god will fight to protect it, and like how long they'll work to sustain it." And that was his argument. I'm quoting it probably imperfectly, but
I'm thinking of right now. I've talked to you about Euphoria, JoJo. For my Euphoria homies, I don't know if any of our audience has seen Euphoria. Odds are at least some of you have heard of it. It's wildly popular. Season 2 came out, I think, today, which was much anticipated. There's a couple of supplementary episodes of the show. They happen after the events of the season. But I happened to accidentally watch those episodes. They were essentially the episode zeros.
Oh, wow.
One for each main character. I happened to watch the episodes before I started watching the rest of the show. I essentially had the plot laid out before me. And the show filled in the blanks. It was brilliant. I feel really bad for the people that watched Euphoria from beginning to end and then watched the supplementary episodes after that because they were released after the season.
Yeah.
Right? And they're all dialogue. I think they're the best episodes of the show. But Zendaya, who plays her character Rue Bennett, and her sponsor Ali from Narcotics Anonymous, he says to her, you know what? In order to prevent you from relapsing, in order to stay sober, you're gonna need a revolution. Okay? He asks her, what's the most powerful thing you can think of? A higher power. You have what's the higher power in your mind? Rue, not being religious, she says the ocean. Ali says try harder. She said any song by Otis Redding. He said okay, and she makes a case, right? She's like, Otis Redding songs, they make you feel a certain way, and there are parts of the show where they play Otis Redding songs, and you believe her. But this guy Ali, he says, listen. A revolution shifts your priorities. That's what you're going to need to prevent you to stay sober to get off the drugs, a complete reshuffling of one's priorities, abandoning everything. It all burns. And everything's gone. Your family, your health. And in order to do that, you can't believe in your favorite song or the ocean or a sticker or a pair of shoes. You have to believe in the poetry. You have to create your own God, regardless of whether or not you believe in one. Because the God you create is the only one who's going to stick around through the hardest parts.
Oh shit!
It's a
That is
scary.
That is
It's a scary thing, man. It feels even more profound, the stuff we're doing, man. Like the pantheon that I've made that I almost spoke explicitly about during my my recap. I'm excited for the Brains of Bot. Shout out you guys to figure that out. You and I, we made gods. Houston has. It's a
job requirement.
Scary prospect.
Yeah, it's part of the deal. It says you wanna step up and make gods and sculpt worlds and recompose the pines and pick your way amongst clouds and shift mountain ranges with the ridge of your hand on a map. Then you got to be a little cringe, man.
You got to double down. People are going to cringe.
You do. You got to try and make those squeaky door noises. You got to role play the bartender. You got to put your legwork in.
My latest bartender's name was Felix. I decided on the spot.
That's a bartender name.
It was great. He was a really great bartender.
Lucky fella.
It's sad, man. I hope we defeat Dr. Bleakwood, and I hope that in some small way we shake your world a little bit.
I think it's a really interesting problem. I had no solution to it. I'm asking you guys a question for which there's no solution. I don't have a plan for how you guys can beat Bleakwood. If you convince me that you can, of course you will. But he is a person whose agenda depends upon the game and the world ending. Other fantasy worlds end, and he has succeeded and has profited. So we could play Pragasfar sessions for the rest of our lives, and then it would end, and past all of our consciousnesses, Bleakwood would win. But I don't know. It's a real question, and I'm really excited to play it out.
So Bleakwood might always win, because one day you and I, JoJo, will be dust.
The yet undefeated Bleakwood.
The yet undefeated Bleakwood. It's going to take a revolution.
It's going to take a revolution.
I was thinking about, I wanted to say names. The way that I come up with names is, I'll take like a thematically relevant word, right? Like let's say, I'm trying to name like a creature that looks like a zebra, but it has scales instead of fur and 6 legs instead of 4, and it glistens green instead of black and white, and they're mounts, right?
Wait, are you just describing a Bentazir?
From what?
No, I just came up with the word Bentazir. It's like sounds like
it's close.
Sounds in it.
Well, what I would do is just an example. I would put zebra into Google Translate and just go down the list of languages until I found one translation of zebra that sounds sort of snappy. I take that, I morph it into something, if it isn't snappy, snappier. I think Nanod is the Filipino, I think it's, there's a Filipino language, it's not the Filipino language. Tagalog. That's the word for dream, I think. Nanod with 3 A's. Interesting.
Dude, enormous shout out to Aiden Kendra, who, if he hears this, is going to hear this with just understanding, really genuinely understanding distaste as a man who can, linguistically assess his worlds and come up with naming schematics that make sense to him. And we're here dude, I put zebra into Google Translate. I scrolled for 10 minutes.
I don't know, man. It feels like reverence to me. Maybe it is truly.
There's a weird reverence to it. Of course there is.
Yeah.
Right? Of course.
What is irreverence if not reverence for
You joined the
chaos and
you joined the decades of weird DM dudes thinking things were awesome and just for no reason
it's
at
like
all. Making
it's
them.
like uh oh god, the field of philosophy that it's like nothing matters. What's
That
it called?
nihilism.
It's like nihilism. Why would you care so much about not caring? You know, of course you do, and it's a good thing. You should care. Um, one other thing, couple other things I wanted to say.
Sure.
Cal got his how Cal got his tattoo. Initially, when he very first session,
There's session one.
when we came up on Oscar Spade, right?
Murray Spade's father.
He was dying, right? Like the crystal was encapsulating his body, which we still haven't figured out yet, covering his body. The princess, whose father we promised we would say it. It's pretty, I mean, that suitcase could be
Jazzy.
anywhere. Yeah.
Where is that suitcase right now?
What, these loose ends, man. He bonded to Oscar Spade in the moment of panic. He didn't think, there wasn't anything he could really think to do. And then this kestrel blossoms and the wings spread on his forearm. Oh, dude, I have to show you. I redid Cal's art
Oh, come
on
on
Hero
again.
Forge.
Of course,
It's
you would
gonna
have
be
had
cool. I'll send it to you because you would have seen Cal by now.
to. Right.
And the last thing I want to say before we do closing remarks here, we're perfectly on time.
Really.
Drizzt transformation in his pilgrimage to the stock of reverie to become angel. It's so poetic, and great minds think alike, JoJo, because Greg, my buddy, he ran us a 3 or 4 shot, a 3 shot, I think, 2 shot. It was Oops All Cowboys. It was a Western fantasy, so much fun.
That sounds
I
ridiculous.
played a dragon bounty hunter called Mr. Cazador. I don't know if you remember me telling you that.
Cazador, yeah, Hunter. That's good.
And he had a long story. He loved dragons, and killing them was sort of a way that he some like a compartmentalization and a sort of a sacred, in the same way the Native Americans, the kill is a very sacred thing in ancient
Sure.
Native American
Suck
tribes,
its
right?
soul out and use the shout. I mean,
Exactly.
Native
You know,
American
it's
stuff.
right, and it was the very end of the session, the final battle, where Mr. Cazador takes off his hat and he says, "Listen, everybody, I didn't tell you my real name. It's Angel. Angel. His name was Angel Vargas, or Angel." And it just felt like this beautiful, like he had fallen in love with this prostitute, and she was pregnant, and he was about to be a father in the wake of his father's recent passing last five
Could
ten
not help
years.
yourself. Of course he was.
It felt so full circle. It felt like an arrival in the same way that Drizzt arrived at Stock of Reverie, and they gave him this name, right?
Long walk does some stuff to you. Walking across the continent, turns out. Takes a couple weeks, but you know.
Long walk, man. Wow. Well,
Here we are.
we got 3 minutes closing remarks. Last thoughts, final musings. We've got oh man, we've got, so JoJo, you've run the one-on-ones with Max and Houston respectively. Our next session is this weekend, hopefully, if everything coalesces. And all our characters are going to, I suspect, collide.
Yeah. You are all on trajectory for the party to reform. Everyone will be playing in our next session.
Who knows? Hey, I'm anticipating collateral damage. It's going to be big.
Could be sweet.
Collision, man. That's what happens.
There doesn't have to be any potential for it. You just need everyone to anticipate it, and then all of a sudden, there's potential for it.
Yeah. The anticipation is always worse than the actual thing, right? Always worse.
Good point.
I think I think everybody makes their own god, right? Regardless of whether you're part of an organized religion. Jojo, I remember you saying, I try not to describe things too specifically, try to paint large swaths and let each person fill in the blanks with their own imagination.
Absolutely.
That's what making gods feels like. You know?
The details are there. Just go find them yourself.
Exactly.
Beautifully put.
Over to you, Jojo.
Closing remarks. The one-on-one sessions were amazing. I am continually astonished by what can happen if you put people in heightened states, put people in exceptional circumstances, and leave an open end. It's just beautiful. It's D&D. It might as well be anything, I think. Or maybe anything's a bit generous, but I think we get into a little bit something essential of human imagination. So
I sincerely hope that Bleakwood loses, and even if he wins, I think you're gonna walk out a different guy, Jojo.
let's find out together.
So, Sam, I've been playing Grease. I really like it.
He loves them.
I love you, Sam. I'll see you in the next one, buddy.
So long.